Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Yolobox Mini. This is a video encoder that will allow you to stream your productions out to popular streaming services, either through HDMI or a USB webcam. It also doubles as a monitor, so you can monitor the output as things are going, and it records as well. And we're going to take a closer look at this little device and what it's all about in just a second. But I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, this came in free of charge from Yolobox. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this streaming box is all about. Now, the price point on this is $699. The price might seem like a lot, but believe it or not, in the video production world, this is a budget kind of price. So if you are looking at other on-camera encoders like this one, you'll see a lot more expensive devices out there that have similar features to this. Now, this is kind of the starting point in the Yolobox product line. There are two other Yolobox products out there. One is called the Yolobox, the other one is called the Yolobox Pro. Those work like production switchers, and they will take in more than one video source and allow you to switch between them or do a picture-in-picture and do some green screen stuff. This one is pretty much just an encoding and streaming device, but it does have some video overlays that it can do, or at least graphical overlays, and I will demo that as we get a little bit further into the review. It is running Android, but the Android operating system here is tailored just for the purposes of video streaming and encoding, so it will not have any apps that you can install on top of it. As far as ports are concerned, there are not too many on this one. You do have a USB-C power input over here. This will work with any USB-C power adapter. I have it plugged into an Apple one at the moment, but any USB power device should work with it. There's a battery built into this, so you can run wirelessly completely if you want. That will run for probably about 2 hours or so, depending on conditions and how bright the screen is. So you probably want to keep some power nearby, but if you're in a pinch, you can probably stream for an hour or two without having to plug it in. There's a headphone jack over here. You've got two audio inputs. There is a line in and a mic in. You have an Ethernet port here for connecting it directly to a wired network. I always recommend doing that for streaming if possible. That will be the most reliable connection. You have an HDMI input here for your video devices. This will take any 1080p device and allow you to stream it back out again. You also have the option for plugging a webcam into this over USB, but it has to be one or the other. You can't switch between the two. So if you have a webcam with a microphone, you can plug it in here and get all your audio through that, or you can plug in your HDMI device. It could be another video production switcher like a Blackmagic ATEM or just a camera, and audio will pass through the HDMI out to your stream as well. And then over here is an HDMI output. As you'll see in a minute, there's the option to mirror the display here or just run a clean program out. The display is a pretty bright 500 nit display. It's 5.5 inches. It is a touch screen, of course, for interacting with everything. I'm not sure what the resolution of the display is. I would imagine it's probably a 720p display, but all of the 1080p content that I've been running through it works just fine. And then on the bottom here, you've got a tripod mount, so you could use a little shoe adapter and stick it to the top of your camera. It has a 4G modem built in, so you can use it on a 4G cellular network with a SIM card that will go in this slot here, and then it'll take a full-size SD card over here for recording and for loading on graphics and other things. There is a power button here. It is kind of on a hairpin, at least on this review loaner that I've got with me here, so just be careful not to push that button by accident, because I did that a few times as I was handling the device, and that will put it to sleep, and you'll have to hit it again to come back up, and I think that would probably interrupt your stream. So just be careful with that button there on the bottom. Now, this will connect, in addition to the Ethernet and 4G over Wi-Fi. It supports AC Wi-Fi on either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, but it doesn't support Wi-Fi 6, which I think would be a good technology to have on a streaming box. But if your Wi-Fi is clear of a lot of traffic, I think this will do just fine. Now, the interface on the device needs a little bit of work. As you can see here on the home screen, I've got a bunch of live streams that I was doing as I was testing the device earlier. And now that those streams are ended, I can't do anything with these things, but they're still here. I could hold my finger down here and delete them, but I would like the option to be able to copy the settings forward, because every time you set up a new stream, you have to set up everything from scratch, which is a real pain, especially if you are streaming frequently to the same place. Now, to create a stream, you hit the plus icon here, and you can create a new stream from that button there on the left. The other thing you can do is put it into monitor mode, and this is kind of a quick way to get the input coming in to display on the screen. And you also have the option to record here, but in monitor mode you cannot stream out. So if you are looking to do a stream, you're going to need to create one in order to do that. I've got one set up here, which we'll jump to in a second. So when you create the stream here, you just give it a name and a date, and then you can link it up with YouTube and the other services that you're using. I'm going to jump into this one that I have been using, and as you can see, the interface looks very similar to what we just saw in monitor mode, but I have the option here to go live. If I have an SD card inserted, I can also record simultaneously, and what it will do is record the stream that it's sending out. Basically, the same data will get written to the card as what will get pushed out over one of your connections there. Now, it supports up to 1 terabyte of storage on that SD card. It will work with exFAT, NTFS, or FAT32. Oddly, though, if you go beyond 3.5 gigabytes in file size, it creates another file. It will also, by default, create a new file every 10 minutes. I'm guessing because they're concerned that something might get out of whack during the stream. So you do want to make sure that you hit continuously here, or else it's going to keep making new files every 10 minutes. Those will blend seamlessly in an editor, but I think continuously is probably, for me, the better way to go. Now, as far as streaming is concerned, it'll do up to 1080p at 60 frames per second. If you decide to stream directly to the service provider, it will only allow you to send to one of those at a time. But YOLO has their own streaming service, which will allow you to send one stream to them, and their cloud server will send it out to up to 3 services simultaneously. But this device itself can only do one at a time. Now, I set mine up here to go to my extras channel over RTMP. So if you have one of those multi-streaming service providers, you can RTMP into them, and they could also get your stream out to a larger audience. This will not bond the connection. So we recently looked at a Teradek device that costs a lot more than this, but works with their streaming services where you can actually send data out over all of its connections simultaneously. And if you lose a connection, it just keeps going because it load balances the outgoing data. This one is going to send everything over a single connection. So for example, if you have Ethernet plugged in but also have Wi-Fi configured, the Ethernet is going to be sending 100% of that stream. But if that Ethernet connection goes down, it will then move over to Wi-Fi. So here's an example of me streaming live to YouTube. I pulled the Ethernet cable out, and what you'll see is a brief delay on the YouTube side because it has to get going on the Wi-Fi. So it will interrupt your stream briefly, but it won't drop the stream. So there is some redundancy built into this in the sense that the Wi-Fi was able to pick it up pretty quickly, but it's not going to be as seamless as a bonded connection would. Now, as far as streaming options are concerned, you do have some encoding settings here that you can find through that gear menu. By default, they recommend you use the CBR mode, but they also have a consistent quality mode and a variable bitrate mode. The maximum you can transmit in the CBR mode is 8 megabits per second at 60 frames per second. I did a stream at that level a little bit earlier with a Switch game that I was running, and it looks okay, but there's a lot of artifacting going on, and it wasn't just YouTube introducing those artifacts. I saw it on the recording as well. So what I did is I switched into the CQ mode, which looks a lot better, especially on the recorded card. But I found that the bit rate went up to like 20 megabits per second. So you do have, I think, to contend with a little bit of artifacting to fit within the bandwidth that you are given. That said, I think if you are running live video with people versus a video game, you won't see those artifacts as much, but the encoder here doesn't feel as high quality as something that you might pay more money for. But that said, I found it to be very stable as a streaming device. I never saw any drop frames. It was able to maintain the connection over a stretch of time. Recording at the same time also worked fine. The recordings look great when I took them off the card. So overall, I think it's very stable. I just don't know if it's got the highest end encoder built in. It does have a cooling fan here at the bottom, and I would suggest getting this on top of a camera or at least raised off a table or desk. And that's because the little rubber feet here at the bottom aren't all that high, and I'm a little concerned there's not enough free airflow here. So I would, just keep it elevated a bit just to get that airflow going, or better, mount it to your camera. Now this does have an HDMI output here, so you can mirror the screen here to another larger display. And I've got that set up right here, so we can take a look at it real quick. So you can see right now we don't have a clean output. We've got basically the same image on the other screen as we do on the little one here. But if you go back into your settings and activate Program Out, that will give you a clean feed so that you can get another recording done off another device, or just have a monitor nearby without all the other stuff on screen. And of course you have your controls on the smaller screen here. But this won't be a lag-free experience, so you will experience a little input lag both on the internal display here, but also on an external one, so plan accordingly for that. Now, one thing that this has that many encoders don't have is the ability to overlay graphics into your stream. So what I can do here is pull up the little layer function, and I have the ability to add some image overlays and some lower thirds. So for example, I can go into the lower third here and configure a title. I can type in what I want it to say and then have that overlay during my live stream. So if I hit done here, I've now got this as an option. And what I'll do is pull up our 2-up view again here so you can see what it looks like. So we'll tap on that and it will fade it up here, as you can see. And then I can fade it back down again. Looks pretty good. It seems to work okay. The built-in ones work better than one that I brought over from my Mac. So what you're able to do is set up a transparent PNG file, which I did in Apple's Keynote software. But it comes in really jagged, as you can see here. And this is a 1080p resolution lower third. I use this all the time in Final Cut Pro and everything else, but it doesn't come in very cleanly here. So I'm going to have to look to see if there's some better way to bring in a PNG file to have it look a little nicer. But the built-in ones here I think are a little bit sharper, as you can see. And this is kind of a nice little feature because if you are using something like the A10 Mini, it's often really difficult and cumbersome for a volunteer to roll in a lower third, for example, on that system. This might be a little bit easier because it is just a touch on the screen once it's set up. Now, in addition to those title overlays, they have a scoreboard that you can pull up by hitting the little score icon down here. And what you can do is enable a scoreboard, and I can move it around here, get it in the right spot, and then lock it in. And now you'll see that we have a scoreboard up. And there's some other things you can configure with this. So for example, as I push this here, you can see the score for Team 1 is going up. They do have a couple of different templates. I can make it a little bit larger here, I think, as well. There we go. So you can adjust that. There's also a timer feature, so I could set maybe like a 5-minute timer. This will be a little difficult, I think, to get working out in the field, but if you hit the play button here and sync it up with whatever's happening in your game, it will keep a counter running there all the time, which I thought was pretty neat. You can also set which period that you are in. So some pretty rudimentary graphics here, but they get the job done. There's also a way to tie this in to commenting on popular platforms. So for example, on YouTube, it can pull in comments as they roll in, and you can put them up on screen, including acknowledging super chats. So it's got some neat features built in that you may not typically find on a typical encoder, but it's not all the way to becoming a replacement for OBS or vMix or an A10 Mini, which has broader production capabilities, which includes being able to switch video. Now down in the video description, I will put a link so you can see what some of the output looks like from the Yolobox. And overall, I found it to be a pretty versatile production tool. It does quite a bit for its price, and although it is kind of expensive, it does cost a lot less than other production devices you might find that can do monitoring, streaming, and recording all at the same time. That said, I am concerned a bit about the encoding quality, especially for gamers. You will see some artifacts with high motion scenes, but for general video, I think you'll be fine, especially if you are in a budget-constrained environment. If price is no object, I think there are higher quality devices out there that I would pursue. But if you are constrained, this will deliver a lot of functionality and it looks like a lot of stability for a pretty reasonable price as far as production boxes go. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Jim Tanis and Tom Albrecht, Hot Sauce and Video Games and Eric's Variety Channel, Brian Parker and Frank Goldman, Amda Brown and Matt Zagaya, and Chris Allegretta. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.